Life's too short to drive boring cars. So of course everyone's well aware what's going on in the automotive industry today. But did you know that BMW is hedging a couple of major bets against industry, which could actually leave them in dire straits? Could this in fact be the end for BMW as we know it? Or are they going to pull through this by the next couple of years? Let's get into it now. So the first gamble that BMW is engaging in is the lack of electrification. Recently they were charged with not having a full plan for a full transition to electrified vehicles by a certain year. By 2030, most manufacturers are already saying that they're going to be fully electrified. By 2035, almost every country, particularly in Europe and across even North America, are suggesting that every single vehicle sold in the new car market will be fully electrified. But BMW is exercising some restraint, and that in itself is a huge gamble because every other manufacturer virtually is getting on the wagon, whereas BMW has decided to hold back a little bit. Now they're being fined. There's been lots of scrutiny in industry as a whole that BMW is not going all in. And while BMW is offering some vehicles in certain lineups with electrified opportunities, and they're also creating certain hybrid models, the fact of the matter is they're not going full in. They're only dabbling their toes in the lukewarm water of electrification. And BMW is saying that that's very, very deliberate. BMW is suggesting that the electrical distribution and transmission infrastructure will not be in place to support that. They also say that there won't be enough charging stations and the networks will not be there to support everyone getting on that same wagon. Now this is pledging a huge bet, but there's a lot of people that are saying the same thing that really do believe. How do these countries mandate this when there's no obvious huge plans? There's a lot of people in industry and outside of industry that ask the question. They're scratching their head. How on earth can these countries convert to full electrification infrastructure to accommodate all these drastic changes within the next 5 to 15 years? It doesn't even look like there's not even a plan in place, and so it looks like BMW is hedging a pretty solid bet, in my opinion. I don't believe there's any real way that they can get that switched over on time. So while some people would consider this a lack of committing, the reality is BMW is playing it safe. A lot of manufacturers already committing full electric. Audi, for example, and the VAG group are talking about going full electric all in within even a few short years. Forget about the 2030 or 35 agenda, they're going all in within a couple of years. A lot of brands are really doing the same thing and following suit. But what happens if we get to that end date and then you don't have the infrastructure, people can't buy the cars or run them appropriately, and then you're stuck, you're snookered? Well, BMW is playing a bit safe. While introducing and offering certain models, it does keep them relevant for now, and it does keep them relevant for when they turn the clock over at that time. Whether it's 2030 or 35, BMW can be relevant on both sides of the table. It's likely going to be a much easier transition if the infrastructure isn't accommodated. They can continue building the ICE or internal combustion engine type vehicles and continually develop their electrical technologies. Whereas a lot of other brands, if they find themselves coming up short, they could be in a real world of hurt financially. Now the second factor is the financial side of the industry as a whole. BMW has managed a much stronger first half of 2021 than many other manufacturers. They've managed to secure a lot of chips and were able to support the sales of many new models to the customers that were always shopping. Now while the parking lots aren't as busy as they once were, this parking lot used to actually be full of cars. And so is this area here as well. And take a look at this. This whole parking lot used to actually be full of vehicles all the way to this outer fence. As a matter of fact, most of the vehicles you're seeing back there are only in there for service, and there's almost next to no new cars there available for sale. And what was the reasoning? Well, it's all about the chip shortage is what's caused this whole phenomenon in the industry, and we all know about that. But BMW has secured a lot of chips to get them through that first half of the year. Now, what about the back half of the year? Well, that's where it gets interesting. And recently, BMW was heard saying that they're also running out of chips and they're having to prioritize the sales and the use of the chips to the higher priority cars with much bigger profit margins to allow the company to continue on. But not every other car brand has had that same level of success. They haven't been able to hold on to the same degree that BMW has. And BMW plans on upping their margin. As a matter of fact, they're quoting by the end of 2021, they're expected to have made another $7.5 billion profit. And so a big part of these profits that BMW is going to realize is the fact that vehicles now have been pumped up in terms of value. So sales prices are going up, and again, prioritizing the higher dollar cars. And where the offset of some of the reduced numbers of sales come in place is the fact that prices on the vehicles are a little higher today. That's expected to offset the overall loss and allow them to continue making profits. So the reality is where a lot of brands had to essentially dump certain models to get ahead of the game. For example, Mercedes had to start dumping V8 engines. They're definitely going to have to shed some weight. BMW's been able to avoid a lot of that because they're able to keep on trucking, and the relationships they've had in industry and the fact that they could secure chips has allowed them to continue on business for the first half of the year. Now the lag still continues on. Even if they're having to scale back slightly, they're still in a much better place. Where some manufacturers were getting rid of models, BMW was able to continue on selling the cars that they always know and love, and you as the buyers were able to take advantage of that. And this, combined with the electrification gamble, also puts BMW in a place where there's a risk, but there could be a massive reward. At the end of the day, if any car brands are going to go under, BMW will likely not be at the leading edge of that. And even with big payouts for class action lawsuits for customers owning cars like this 750 here with the N63 engine, which has been a nemesis of many owners due to high oil consumption, timing chains, battery drains, and a whole lot of other problems. Or even class action lawsuits regarding the N20 engine with piled up timing chain assemblies. For example, in the 28i series. And with all of that said, be sure to click right there for the most reliable luxury cars on the market today. Hope to see you real soon. Catch you then. Bye-bye.